Thanks everybody for joining us today. I have Cody Harvey with me. He's our PGA guy. This is our first podcast for Cheat Code Fantasy Sports, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about last week's golf tournament, Charles Schwab Challenge, and we're going to preview the RBC Heritage. But like we said, it's our first time, so kind of like the guys at Colonial last week, we might be knocking off some rust here, so bear with us. And we're going to start doing more podcasts for pretty much every sport. We had 8-10 weeks that we didn't have sports because of the virus, and so golf and NASCAR are one of the first two sports to get back going, unless you want to play KBO baseball or esports. But we'll get started today. But a little bit about Cheat Code Fantasy Sports. What we do is our goal and our idea of why we created this is we want to have data-driven picks for you guys and plays, but also combine that with bankroll management and content selection to help you guys become better players yourself and maximize your chances for success. You know, a lot of these guys, and I don't want to badmouth anybody, but they just put lineups out there and they're like, okay, this is what you pay to play. And that doesn't help you get any better. So our goal is to where, almost to a fault, you won't need us after learning how to do the ins and outs of everything to do with fantasy sports. And so some of the things we have right now, we have player pools. We provide our personal exposures. We don't give lineups, but like if we have 80% of a player, to give you an idea of who we're really heavy into. We give articles, cheat sheets, and then we have ownership and point projections as well. We're kind of fine-tuning those in the future. And then maybe in the future, down the road, we'll have an optimizer as well. But we want to be as transparent as possible in everything that we do, and showing you that we're not just telling you to play these people and then we go play somebody else. These are guys that we're putting our own money on. And so you can rest assured knowing that if you didn't have a good day, we didn't either. And it makes us want to fight harder to be better next time. And so before, we want to take it slow. We want to do things right. So we don't want to offer anything until we're 100% sure that all the bugs are worked out and it's going to be a great product for you guys. So you can follow Cheat Code Fantasy Sports on Twitter at CheatCodeFS. You can follow myself at OkieCowpoke14, and then you can follow Cody at @TheCodyHarvey. And we also have a website, but again, it's under construction. We just kind of started. We literally started together right before everything shut down. We were working on stuff for like a week, and then all the sports shut down. So just stay tuned to our Twitter, and we'll give you updates on when things go. So Cody, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to you to start with a recap of the Charles Schwab Challenge, and then your three winners from the event.
Right on. Thanks, Zach. So Charles Schwab Challenge, which is a mouthful to say, was a little bit different from the normal field that we see at Colonial. So these big guys that, Rory and, John Rahm had teed up there a few times, but Justin Thomas, we're seeing these big names now with the new schedule. So it kind of changed the dynamic of how these players were attacking Colonial. We saw during the layoff, Bryson DeChambeau probably put on 25 pounds of muscle. So it really affected the way these guys were going after it. They were just bombing it off the tee. Bryson ended up leading the entire field in shots gained off the tee because they could carry the trees on some of these dog legs and taking kind of the art form, maybe as Rory would refer to it, take the art out of it and just overpowered the course. So it was a really different tournament from what we're used to. So takes us right into our winners. Shout out to Daniel Berger. Great to see him. He's 27-year-old. He's still a kid. He's still got a long career ahead of him. So it's great to see. He was in great form coming into the break, the layoff. So it was great to see him do well. Another huge bounce back for at Colonial was Justin Rose. Justin Rose is an elite talent in the game. The guy, he was on, he was in our Slack picks. I wrote him up in the article last week. Very rare that you see somebody at his talent and caliber at the price he was at last week, and great to see him do well. And I'm not sure if it had to do with the equipment change or not, but my feeling is that him getting back to his old equipment, getting back in the comfort zone really helped him. And then lastly, Jordan Spieth. He's been having a rough go of it, but he's a young guy. He's 26 years old. He's a 3-time major winner. He gets a lot of slack, and he doesn't really help his cause all the time with his attitude and some of the stuff that's picked up on camera and on the microphones. But to me, it's an important part of golf, having multiple people that can win any given week. It keeps it entertaining, and it makes it so that people want to tune in each week. So it was great to see Jordan Spieth, that of course he knows and he loves, perform well. And he did fall off on Sunday, but Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he was a little bit back to the Jordan Spieth that we know. So then I'm going to throw it back to you, Zach. So who are the losers from the Charles Schwab Challenge?
Yeah, the first one was definitely I think he might have been the highest owned player on the entire slate, Webb Simpson, and he just looked awful. +2, missed the cut, just wasn't doing what he should have done. And usually when you have a guy that's major chalk like that, the next week it's a great time to go back to them because they're going to be low owned. But it looks like people aren't fazed by that. It looks like because he's projected one of the highest owned golfers for this tournament as well. And then John Rahm, one of the top golfers in the world, he just didn't look like himself. He shot even for the 2 rounds, and he also missed the cut. And then the last 2, we kind of just did 2 together. Ryan Palmer, Colonial Golf Course is his home course. He's a member there, and he shot +4. I mean, that's just it's unacceptable for being at your home golf course, but maybe he didn't do very much golfing over the break or something. And then Kevin Na, he was another guy that seemed like a great play all week long, and he shot 2 over the first round, and he kept trying. In the second round, he'd get down to like -1, but he never could get there to -2 for what he needed for the cut. So he probably was the closest of all of them. But all in all, a disappointing golf tournament for those 4 guys. And as I just mentioned, some of that has to do with the layoff and not playing golf or whatever they chose to do. Like Bryson DeChambeau, I think they said he was working out 3 times a day to get some more muscle. But so I want you to, Cody, to go ahead and talk about how you think the layoff has kind of affected some and how it can affect some of these guys that are playing in this week's field but didn't play last week.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like with Bryson, I saw a video of him doing his workouts, and it looked like he just, filled his garage with a bunch of workout equipment and was pulling on handles any which way that he could. And he ends up putting on like 20, 25 pounds. Gary Woodland, on the other hand, thinks he needs to lose weight to improve his game. So he dropped like 15 pounds, looking slim out there. But the layoff was such an unknown because we had guys that, my example in our Slack and in our article, in the article was someone like Sungjae Im. So Sungjae is a grinder. He was going just week to week to week. And I'd mentioned in the Slack, like, we haven't seen any signs of fatigue from him yet. So I thought someone like Sungjae Im, Colin Morikawa, another one who had a ton of momentum going into the break, it was really an unknown, like, how this is going to affect them, and especially those two being younger guys as well. So it was interesting to see. Some guys definitely handled it better than others. John Rahm, who you mentioned, pretty disappointing result. I'm sure he'd agree. And I should throw this out there, the caveat: the losers, as we call them, they're still, they're not losers. They're on the PGA Tour. It's just, as far as performance goes, I think they would agree that it was pretty disappointing. So I think the way to approach it is to kind of have that in the back of our head. We don't know who these guys. We don't know how these guys that are entering the field this week, like Hideki Matsuyama, one of my personal favorite golfers, how is he going to handle a layoff? Ty Hatton in our model ranks out really highly. This is his first week back too. How is the layoff going to affect these guys? And so that's still some of the uncertainty. So the layoff was something everyone had to go through. All of us, I'm sure you'd agree, we've kind of got a new normal going on. It's affected everybody. So I think it's going to be a kind of a wait and see approach to see exactly how this is going to affect people when it's their first week coming back. So I'm a lot more comfortable in some of the plays that we're going to talk about later on, because we have a week, at least 2 rounds for the guys that missed the cut. We at least have 2 rounds of sample now to look at, whereas guys like Matsuyama, Ty Hatton, there's still a bit of that unknown there. So it's exciting, but we'll see. We can reevaluate it in a month when we're doing when we've got 4 more weeks of data to look at, and hopefully things have kind of evened out and normalized.
Yeah, speaking of having data, that's one of the biggest things for fantasy sports. Is it's not just throwing darts at the board and like, I'm going to pick these 5 guys because that's who it landed on. And you need those stats, especially for golf, for baseball, college. Some of those sports are heavily reliant on stats. And it just got me thinking about how right before the break, we were working on getting a model together for college basketball, and we were getting it fine-tuned, and then everything just stopped. And so that was a little frustrating because we put a lot of time and effort into that. But like Cody said, when we get 4 or 5 weeks, and so that's why he suggested last week, don't go crazy playing outside your means or anything like that, because we don't know how they're going to react. And still, even this week, we feel a little bit better, but it's better to have at least a month's worth of stats to go by. And so, speaking of that, playing outside your means and things, one of the biggest things we want to talk about daily is bankroll management. A lot of new players, you'll see at commercials, you'll probably see them for this tournament. Invite your friends, you'll get a $20 ticket to win $1 million. And so DraftKings draws everybody in like that, but they don't, nobody knows what to play and how to play. So the idea is you want to stick to about 70 to 80% of your whatever sport or whatever of those contests you want to be in your cash games, and the other 20 to 30% in your GPPs. And so, like, if you spent on this tournament $100, you'd want to have between 70 and 80 of it in the cash games, and only 20 to 30 in the GPPs. And then you don't want to play more than 10 to 15% of your bankroll, unless, unless you just have a way better job than I do, and you can just deposit every week. But if you want to not have to deposit every week, it's best to stick to 10 to 20, 10 to 15%. And so if you don't know what cash games are, so when you go to the lobby on DraftKings, anything that says double ups, 50-50s, head-to-heads, 3-player, 5-player, triple ups, quintuple ups, although those are kind of like GPPs, except they don't give you as much. And then so GPPs are what PGA, DraftKings, they're trying to get you to get into. The $20, oh, you have a chance to win $1 million, but they don't tell you that there's 177,000 other lineups in that contest. And so you have to be almost perfect to get that. And so with GPPs, there's also single entry, 3 entry, 20 entry, and 150 entry. And it's just like it sounds. If you're playing a GPP that's single entry, if I'm in it and Cody's in it, we can only be in it once. So we only have one lineup. If that lineup goes bad, we're done. But if we have 3 max or 20 max, I can enter it 20 times. He can enter it 20 times. You can enter it 20 times. So just think of that and how that's lowering your chances. The more and more lineups that are allowed, and the more and more lineups allowed per person. And we can discuss if you have any questions. We're always available in chat on our Slack or on Twitter. We can help you. And then, so for cash, for specifically golf, talking about each week, it kind of varies what you want to play. So like this week is very much a balanced week. The 7,000 to 8,000, so between 7,000 and 9,000 range in salary is very, very loaded. And so there's not a need to go up and pay for guys like Rory and JT and those guys, because it's balanced. Now, other weeks, you want to have stars and scrub, where you get 2 of those studs like Rory and JT, and then fill it in with cheap guys. But that's not this type of week. The main thing is you want to get a guy that you know can get 8 times his salary in value. So if his salary is 5,000, I know nobody's in that for golf, but I'm just making it. You want about 40 points. So you want to be thinking of that. I know lots of different sites give owners like point projections. Just go on what you think this player could score. And if you don't think he can get 8 times his price, then don't use him. So Cody, how about you talk about for golf and GPPs, and maybe some GPPs that you like, contests you like, and then also what's a good strategy?
Yeah, for sure. So when I'm looking at GPP lines for golf, you don't have to differentiate with your entire lineup. You don't need 6 unique golfers. You need 1 unique golfer. A lot of times you have 1 golfer who's under 3% owned, you leave some money on the table, that's going to differentiate you enough from the field to really be in play for a GPP winning lineup. So I think that's a great point you make when you're looking at value that you can get from a golfer with cash. If we're getting 8 times value, we're pretty safe for most cash lines. With GPP, I want more upside. I'm looking for guys that can realistically hit 10 times their value. So like an example Zach and I talked about off the air was JT this week. So Justin Thomas, phenomenal golfer, like top 5 in the world, talent-wise for sure. He needs 109 points this week to hit 10 times value. And if you're looking at winning a GPP, you're looking at upwards of 12 times value. But if we stick to 10 just to make the math easy, JT needs 109 points to hit value this week. Is that within the realm of possibility? 100% it is. But for JT to hit 109 points, he's got to be, in the top 3, in the top 5 at least, come Sunday. So when we're looking at GPP upside, look at golfers who are a safe bet to hit that 10 times and up value.
Yeah. So like I said, if you guys have any questions on bankroll management or you're new to the game, just hit any of us up on Twitter. Even if you're not a member, we'd love to have you as a member on our Slack chat, but we just like to help people. That's why we started it, because we want to help others, because in some of our past experience may not be the greatest. Like whenever I first started, nobody was there to help me. I think that was 5 years ago. I can't remember. And so I just felt like I was throwing money around. So we just want to help you. But we're going to move on. And before we get into some plays, we want to look at this tournament specifically, maybe like how the course plays and things like that. So Cody, go ahead and tell us about the RBC Heritage.
Right on. Thanks, Zach. So RBC Heritage, we're going to Harbortown Golf Links in Hilton Head, South Carolina. So it's par 71, comes in at about 7,100 yards. So it's a Pete Dye designed course. So Pete Dye designs, he tends to design courses that you have to really think your way around the course, and you have to plan your next shot. So it's more about angles and approach than it is, say, what we saw Bryson do at Colonial last week. So the courses are set up. We've got a lot of overhanging trees on the narrow fairways. So I don't see them being able to drive over and just outmuscle the course like last week. This is really a target course where you have a target on the fairway. You land it so you got the best angle to approach the green. These greens are small. They're close to 50% of the size of a regular than the greens on a regular PGA Tour course. So if you're not hitting the greens, you better be good at scrambling in your around the green game. Add into that, this is a coastal course, so there's going to be wind. That's inevitable. Last week at Colonial, typically you get more wind than what we saw there. This week, I'm anticipating that wind is going to be a factor come Sunday for sure. So we're really looking at guys that can shape shots, that can make shots, guys that are accurate, and guys that, if they do get into trouble, they can get themselves out of it.
Okay.
So how's I'll throw it back to you. How's the first look at the weather for Hilton Head?
Yeah. Well, that's the first thing to mention is, we're recording 7:51 right now Central Time on Tuesday, and the tournament starts on Thursday morning. So things are going to change between now and then. So don't take what I say right now as a Bible and go on and set your lineups and forget about it, because weather changes by the minute. Everybody knows that. So the best way is get into our Slack. We're going to have updates all day tomorrow and for each round as well. Because weather does play a factor, especially in showdowns, and we'll talk about that in our Slack too, on each round of showdowns, because sometimes the morning wave or the afternoon wave has an advantage based on the weather that we're going to be dealing with. But as we get into it, Thursday, a couple of days ago, I thought Thursday was going to be a problem for the rain. Maybe some showers coming up off the coast, but it looks like it's going to hold off at least until the evening. So it looks like Thursday is probably going to be good. No problems all week the temperatures are going to be in the 80s, so that's going to be nice. Pretty mild compared to the 90s and almost 100 degrees in Fort Worth last week. Friday does look a little concerning as far as storms, especially in the afternoon. And so that'll be something we need to watch for the showdowns that we on Friday. And it could also affect people that are trying to make the cut too. Because if they go in the afternoon on Friday, and that's when the storms are going to be, that's going to probably throw a wrench into some things too. So it's just not a good idea to focus too much on any of that right now, because the forecast models aren't into the high resolution models yet. Whenever they can, some of those things sometimes predict the storms within 20 miles. It's crazy how accurate those things are as you get closer and closer. And as well as the wind. Although the wind, it looks like pretty much every morning it's not going to be a problem, about 5 to 10 miles an hour. But every afternoon, except for Sunday afternoon, the winds are going to pick up to about 15 miles an hour. So that's going to be an issue, especially with some of those showdowns. But for right now, cross our fingers, Sunday looks to be perfect golfing weather, temperatures in the mid-80s, no sign of rain, very little wind, maybe maxing out about 10 miles an hour. But like I said, we're recording at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, and we have almost, not quite 48 hours, but between 24 and 48 hours. So just get in our Slack, keep that in mind that it's changing. But yeah, so I think that covers it. You gave us a breakdown of the course, and I gave you first look at the weather. So now, Cody, why don't you give them some cash plays for this week?
Yeah, you bet. So first cash play, I'm going back to Webb Simpson. So salary took a dip. We got our ownership projections earlier this afternoon. It looks like he's coming in at over 20%, but still going to Webb Simpson. Huge bounce back candidate. He's definitely better than what he showed last week at Colonial. He's a little more comfortable at this course. And running the model, he is number one far and away as far as the model ranks go. So I'm loving some Webb Simpson this week. Give you some different options. So coming in at number 11 in the model is Brian Harmon at $7,200 on DraftKings. Good deal on DraftKings and FanDuel, and an absolute steal on Yahoo at $26. So he's not projected to be highly owned, but ranks out really well in the model, and he's got some solid course history. So liking Brian Harmon. Calling an audible and adding somebody who's in my GPP picks as well, but also like Ian Poulter. His course history in the last 3 trips, he had T10 last year, T7 before the year before that, and T11 the year before that, and he's coming in at $7,600. I really like Ian Poulter. If the wind picks up, it's not going to phase him a bit. He's used to it. He's a grizzled old veteran. So I'm adding Ian frickin' Poulter for my cash plays. And then somebody in the 6K range, I can't stress it enough. With the amount of value that we have in the 7K range and the 8K range for that matter, I'm not going to be playing anyone in the 6K range in cash. But if you absolutely need somebody, I was looking at Matthew Neesmith, and Neesmith ranks 33rd in the model, so he's not really high up there. But I like Neesmith's game, and he showed up pretty well last week at Colonial. He's one of those guys I had my eye on before the break, and he seems to be back in good form. So at $6,600 on DraftKings, you could do worse for cash games than Neesmith. So I'll throw it over to you, Zach. Who do you like for your GPP plays this week?
Yeah, thanks. So the first guy, he's number 36 in the model. and he comes in projected at 2% owned. So if he does well, he's going to shoot you up those leaderboards. It's Russell Henley at 7,100. He's not a great putter. Let's go ahead and I'll give you a breakdown on the model. His strokes gained or shots gained for putting is 100. He's ranks 154th. But in all the other stats that we like for this tournament, approach, around the green, proximity, scrambling, par 4 average, and putting birdie or better. Well, putting is not great, but everything else is in the top 60. So like Cody mentioned earlier, the greens are small, so he might leave himself with some easy putts with his ability in the other game, part of the game, his game, to do well. And the second guy, I was hoping he'd be low owned, but apparently he's not coming in to be low owned. His 14% in the projections, Brooks Koepka at 8,600. But the reason he is 14% projected owned is because he's way too cheap. He's a guy he was approaching almost 11,000 last year and in the fall season. And so his upside at that price is just phenomenal. He wasn't terrible last week. He never got close to the top of the leaderboard, but he still got a -6. So around the green, his game ranks 41st. So, and that's one of the stats we're looking at this week that might help him get there. Overall, he's not the best on the model, but he's one of those guys that his upside is too great for how cheap he is. And another guy that's going to be low owned, projected again for 2%, is Luke Donald at 7,000 even. He has a great course history, and he's number 12 in the model. So the scrambling and par 4 average is not that great, but his approach, he's 10th in approach. He's 15th in around the green. And then let's go his course history. He missed the cut in 2018, but every other time he's been 37 or better. And he's been second 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and he's been third twice. So his course history is phenomenal. For some reason, he just plays really well here. And he comes out projected high in the model, and that's what I love about Cody's model every week is we get these guys in the top 20 that are guys that nobody in the industry is talking about. And almost every time it comes out and they perform just like the model says. So check us out. You can get access to the full model by getting in our Slack. So that being said, Cody, who are 3 guys that you like for your GPPs?
So for my GPP plays, I mentioned him in my cash game, but Ian Poulter, his upside is phenomenal, and his price at $7,600 still makes him a solid GPP play. Another one I love is Shane Lowry. So Lowry was in the field last week at Colonial, so he had a chance to knock some rust off. Comes in at 7,800 this week. He was T3 here last year. His game is set up for coastal courses. If the wind picks up, he's very similar to Poulter that way. It's not going to affect him in the least. But Lowry's got tournament winning upside, as we saw at the Open last year. He's got elite talent. So to come in at $7,800 on DraftKings, and our projections have him under 5% owned. So when you factor in, you talked about Koepka, and I completely agree. His upside is off the charts for $8,600. Lowry, I put in the same category for 7,800 on DraftKings. He's got tournament winning upside and GPP winning upside at 5% for that matter. And then another one I like is Kevin Kisner at 7,700. Not the greatest results last week at Colonial, but he still made the cut and performed fairly well. Would have paid off in cash lines. but this is a course Kisner's way more comfortable at. He's got good course history here. So at $7,700, I like Kevin Kisner. So those three guys, you got Lowry at 7,800, Kisner at 77, Poulter at 76. That's a pretty decent core that gives you a lot of flexibility to build the GPP line. And it wouldn't surprise me to see any three of those guys at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday.
All right, that sounds great. So just to recap our plays, so for cash, we both like Webb Simpson. He's probably the lock of the week, honestly. Number one in the model and highest projected owned. It seems like industry-wide, nobody's afraid of last week. And then Brian Harmon. And again, Matthew Neesmith, but you don't need to get down below 7,000. But if you got in a pinch or you wanted to pay up for somebody, that's who we'd go with, as well as Ian Poulter. And then my GPPs are Russell Henley, Brooke Koepka, and Luke Donald. And then Cody's are Shane Lowry, Ian Poulter, and Kevin Kisner. You can get our full, Cody has an article out. He has the cheat sheet with the model history. It has the models. It has every stat. If you want to look at other stats besides just the ones that he provides in the model, has their recent performance in other tournaments, has their shots gained, has their course history, and then course history by round. And then each day, he will also add round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4 showdown stuff. We have our ownerships already out. I'll have weather and Slack. He'll have some strategy and Slack for showdowns and things like that. So give us an invite. We'll have the link below here in our YouTube video. Go ahead and join our Slack. And then we want to mention all of the other of our team. We're just two guys. We're the owners of Cheat Code Fantasy Sports, but we've got a great team so far. Again, it's kind of hard with everything shut down and all the sports shut down. Was right whenever we were trying to get guys on board and everything. But we have Thomas Kelly. He does our ownership and our point projections. He's great. They're pretty accurate, like within the 1 or 2% on the ownership. Aaron Marga, he does our NFL stuff, or some of our NFL stuff. Aaron Buss, he helps me on college, and I can tell you right now, and I'm trying to be humble, but we have the best college stuff that you can find in the industry. And right now it's free. It's going to be free for this whole year too. I was runner-up of Fantasy Sports Writer Association for College Writer of the Year. And with Cody's help, it's just going to be better because I'm going to have models and stuff as well. And then Jake and Luke Altmaier, they're our NASCAR guys, and they'll be posting some stuff here this week for the races. And then Phil Beneteau, he does NBA and NFL. And we're going to keep growing. So if you've never thought about writing sports, but you love sports, you hit us up and we can definitely, because we can help you learn how to become a better writer. But one thing we can't teach is passion and desire for the sport and for playing fantasy sports. So let us know if you want to do that. And then again, my Twitter is OKCowpoke14. His is the Cody Harvey. And then at Cheat Code FS for our Cheat Code Twitter. And we also have Facebook, and we'll have the website up. So before we close out, Cody, any final thoughts?
No, I think great job on our first podcast, Zach. I'm very impressed. You're a natural. Shout out to the team. We got a great team, and like Zach said, we're looking to grow. Zach said it perfectly. We can teach you how to write. We can give you all the tools to be a good writer. We can't teach you passion and desire, and those are the things that we're looking for. So if this is something that you always thought about doing but never have, just hit us up. send us a DM. It doesn't have to be anything public, and we'll be happy to talk to you. But just to reiterate, you mentioned it several times already, but I think the real value in what we do is coming in our Slack chat, where you're able to interact with Zach, with myself, with our other writers and contributors, and really get a customized approach and customized solutions to what you're looking for. So I'll be in Slack all evening tomorrow. It's kind of my routine. The night before PGA lock, pardon me. The night before PGA lock, I'm in Slack helping with lineups, answering any questions. So again, hit up our Slack. The link will be in the description below, or hit us up on Twitter and we'll be happy to get you an invite in.
All right, thanks, Cody, and thank you guys for watching, and good luck this week.
Yeah.